In a comments discussion, somebody asked if I could cover auto bracketing in the Nikon ZR, and I thought that would be a great way to get to know this camera. And also, as a corollary, I also tried to set up a time-lapse. One I succeeded pretty well with, the other I failed miserably. And this particular situation was driven by the fact that fall color this year has been very limited, and we have a major storm that's bearing down on us here in the Midwest. So I tried to get out and shoot while I still had some leaves left on the trees. And as I'm putting this video together, we have 30 and 40 mile an hour winds that are knocking down the remaining leaves that we have. So there was a little bit of time urgency while I was making this video. So I had success with the auto bracketing, and I'll go ahead and cover how to do that. But I also failed, and the problem that I had, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I failed, is in doing the time lapse. And what happened was I did not have the shutter sound turned on. I was timing the length of time to make my video, which was 25 minutes. And I thought I hit the start feature in the menu, but the time lapse never started. If I had had the sound on and I could see the green light, I would have done a lot better. What it did was it took a series of 5 interbill shots left over from my bracketing. By the time I discovered what had happened, 25 minutes, I'd lost the glorious sunset that I was trying to do the time lapse with. So every time that you go out, you're going to learn something, particularly by your mistakes. And I've learned that there is a setting for auto bracketing that you can turn off, and I'll show you that. I've done a lot of bracketed HDR photos. That was my main mode of operation when I did Western Wanderlust, and that allowed me to really make some of the landscape photos pop. What you pick up with bracketed exposure is a much greater dynamic range. It's amazing how the photos can be transformed within Lightroom or the camera raw module within Photoshop. It's just amazing. So I went out, beautiful fall day, and I took multiple bracketed exposures. And one of the things that I missed right off the bat was my Z9 has a dedicated bracketing knob and button assembly for being able to easily set brackets. In the ZR, you have to dive in the menus. It's not particularly difficult. What you need to do, which I didn't do, and it caused me some grief, once you're done doing your bracketed exposures, you've got to go in and turn that feature off. And the problem I had was I had limited time. It was a beautiful evening, and there was going to be a beautiful sunset. So I was going to also put together a video of how to do the time-lapse feature. Well, I was unsuccessful. I followed all the menu features, including hitting the start button. But instead of doing a time lapse, it started doing bracketed exposures, which messed up the time lapse. By the time I discovered it, I had a timer set for 25 minutes. I discovered that I had a whole bunch of bracketed exposures, but no time lapse video. I had to go in and turn off the auto bracketing slider, and then I did it again, but by then it was so dark that I missed that window of opportunity of the beautiful sunset. The advantages of doing bracketed exposures are you're going to get much better dynamic range. And these days, you can easily solve one of the problems of doing bracketed exposures. Usually when you do the underexposed image, there's a possibility of introducing noise. But when you're assembling multiple images, say 3 at a time, that produces a file within Lightroom that you can click on and do noise reduction. And the noise reduction within Lightroom is fantastic. And this is coming from somebody that's used the full Topaz suite of noise reduction tools. Latest is Photo AI, but Lightroom is just probably the best of the best for noise reduction right now. And that used to be one of the limitations or disadvantages of bracketed exposures, is you would have a lot of noise that could be introduced into a photo. Sometimes I would just work with a single frame rather than multiple exposures combined together. I've typically done 3 photos, usually one stop apart, or 5 photos one stop apart. The drawback with the 5 exposure method is when you get into that really dark image, it has a lot of noise in it. So I found out that the 3 for me was probably the ideal interval of shooting brackets. Once we've done that long press on the menu button, it's going to bring up our photo shooting menu. We're going to want to scroll to where it says auto bracketing, and you'll notice it says AE, that's your exposure. And what we're going to do then is we're going to tap, or we can use the multifunction control lever. I prefer to tap, but I don't do flash bracketing since I use continuous light for my exposures and my videos. So for AE bracketing, I'm going to choose that. With AE bracketing selected again, you're going to go into the menu and set the number of bracketing that you have. I've mentioned 3 or 5, one stop apart. And so by scrolling to the right, you'll be able to get to that and be able to choose those. And we're going to choose the number of shots that we have. And normally, like I said, we're going to do 3. Once you've done those, you're going to OK the setting, and then you're basically have your bracketing set up. You're almost done. You want to just make sure your slider is showing bracketing exposures on, and then you want to go to your screen and make sure it's showing bracketing on the screen. Now you're really ready. So let me walk you through how this works. In Lightroom, we're going to go into the carousel, find our 3 images, the one that's one over, the one that's in the middle, and it's the one that's overexposed. Then we're going to go up to the menus, and we're going to go merge photos. We're going to create an HDR, and then you're going to get a dialog box up there that's going to talk to you about ghosting. And you're going to want to pick whatever's the most appropriate for your photo. If you don't have a lot of movement in the photo, you might be able to get away with low or medium. Sometimes if the trees are really moving around and everything like that, you may have to use the heavy setting. But again, the advantages of this are fantastic dynamic range, also better color bit depth in the final image. As it is a combined photo that's still a raw file, it's fully editable. So let's go ahead and we'll walk through this. I'm very pleased with the ZR's photos that I got. It was a beautiful evening, and the ability to, with just a few clicks, transform a bland photo into something that really looks quite a bit more like the way your eyes perceive it. That when it's already pretty dark, it's a great tool to be able to use with these bracketed exposures. The technique is the same. You go to the carousel, click on the images that you want, you select those, and then you go up with the merge command and merge to HDR panorama, and it'll bring up a dialog box that is a little bit different. It's going to give you 3 projections: spherical, cylindrical, and perspective. And I generally choose the one that gives me the closest to a 16:9 aspect ratio because I'm always delivering the video. You can also use the warp control to warp the image in the corners, and again, it just does an amazing job. And ultimately, I did that and made this really, really long panorama. And I didn't feel like that I was being held back by this camera at all. With the great dynamic range and low noise, even though it was almost dark, I made this final clip. But this clip is really a panorama that I just made into a video clip. I'm enjoying this camera. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I really like the size, weight, and the image quality.